Okay, good morning and welcome to 2024 and Happy New Year, everyone. So, what are we doing today? We are going to be doing a simple card design, but it's also a design that you could be using for an art journal. If you have an art journal that has loose leaf pages, you could be using it for a planner. Again, if your planner has loose leaf pages, and also for scrapbooking. So hopefully you can hear me all right. If you can hear me, let me know. Everything is showing correctly on here, so I'm just doing fingers crossed and hopefully everything is okay. Good morning, Deb, and Happy New Year to you. So what do we need? We need a card blank, so pre-scored, folded, entirely up to you, but just as long as you've got one that's kind of halfway there. And any paper pad, so no need to be particularly fussy. Now let me just see if I can straighten that up a bit because I look awfully wonky today. There we go, a little bit straighter. So I'm going to start by working on the card base itself, and we're going to want to grab our cutting mat. So if you're working with a silhouette or cricket, you can do the same design, just the process is a little bit different because you'll be working on computer, whereas we can work direct on our machine for scan and cut users. And you can do this project whether it is for an STX or ACM model. So I'm going to take my card blank and I'm going to use the grid on my mat to bring it in 1 inch in and 1 inch down. And the reason that we do that is so that we can see the edges of our card, like so. Okay, now, because we're working with a white card blank on a white mat, we need to make life a little bit easier for ourselves and give ourselves a guide to work to. So, firstly, we're going to mark our score line with some washi tape. And I'm just going to stick this to the left-hand side of that fold line so we can see where our card front starts. Now we need to pop another one over here. I'm just going to line that up with a scalloped edge. So it's a little bit tricky when you have a decorative edge like this, but it's not impossible. And I'm also going to give myself a guide at the top, even though we can use the grid on our mat. And at the bottom, it's just going to make things a little bit easier when we come to want to line things up. So once we have our front mapped out like this, we can then take it to our machine and start working on there. So let's wake up the machine. First time for 2024. And when you first switch it on, it's going to say the carriage will move, which means it's going to give a little startup judder. So if you are new to your scan and cut, at this point, remove your blade. And it's just going to prevent you chipping your blade. Now, I'm just going to cancel that because that means that I was naughty and I didn't turn it off properly last time. So, let's load my mat. Now, when we are wanting to work with background scan, which we do whenever we've kind of given ourselves washi guidelines and things, then what you do have to remember is that you can't go straight to scan to get that background scan. We need to put a shape in first. So I'm going to guess, is that Mom that's come up Facebook user? I will see if I can just do a little reminder of the link so that I can see who's who. and hopefully I will paste that in as well, just so that you can see that. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go to pattern. We're going to go to basic shapes to start with, and I already have a design pretty much in mind for what I want to do. So I need a long thin rectangle. Doesn't matter if it has rounded corners or not, choice is up to you. I'm going to do some stretching, so what I'm going to do is stick to just a plain corner for now. Okay, so at this point I'm not too bothered about size, because obviously we're going to want to be rotating things around and playing with it. So I'm just going to add that to my mat as is. Okay, now while I'm here, I can also go, well, I'm also going to need to chop down my card front a little. So let's go to add. We're going to add an additional pattern. So we can go to our borders. And if we press the double arrow, it's going to skip down to the bottom of the list. And then we can nudge back up the page. So the card blank that I'm using has this lovely scalloped edge on it. So I want to try and match that as much as possible, but at the same point we want it to be a single line cut. So one of these ones where it looks like this thin line here means it's just going to cut just that path. So let's go for this one. Okay, and again I'm just going to add that to my mat as is. So I'm not worrying at this stage about how tall my card is, having to measure it. Let's try and keep it nice and simple. Now that we've got two shapes on our mat, we can go and do a background scan. Okay, so with our background now clearly visible on screen, we can start to move elements around, resize them, and so on and so forth. So let's take my first box here. Okay, we can move it around just by dragging it with your stylus. If we go to edit, object edit, I'm going to rotate it so it's 90 degrees so that we've got a tall thin rectangle. So that's going to more match our format of our card. We're going to go OK. Now we're going to go to resize, and as I said, I want this thinner really. So we have a little trick up our sleeve on our machines, and it's this button here. And when we tap it, it's going to go blue, which means that it's turned on. And that means that we can edit our height and width independently of each other. So we can squeeze and stretch. So let's squeeze that in. And yeah, I'm going to go about there. Now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this up here. So not too close to the edge, because obviously bear in mind that we've got that scallop. So our tape marks the outermost edge of the scallop rather than the inner one. So you want to try and keep a good distance clear. Now let's get our other border here. And again, I'm just going to go OK back out of that so that I can do my rotation first. So rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to move it. And we can resize it now. If we move it up to this top edge here and then resize, it's going to stretch out that way. What we want to do is try and put it in the middle. So I'm going to roughly line it up with my washi tape here. I'm going to go OK. Now, this time we're not going to touch that ratio button just yet. So I'm going to just concentrate on just the height. you're going to see that it resizes from the middle. Like so. Okay, so let's just move that down a fraction. Now, because we've stretched the height proportionally, what you're going to find is that your width now is larger. Now, depending on the design of your card, then you might want to squidge that back in. So again, we can turn on that ratio function and we can squidge it back to, not all the way down to 2. Thank you very much. So back there, so matches our card blank. And Happy New Year, Michelle. So let's go okay. And now, before I go any further, I'm just going to zoom and just make sure that I'm happy with where this is sitting. So we can use the buttons in the top right corner to nudge our design. And what you're aiming to do, basically, is to have it so that you get that cut line almost to the edge, but not quite to the edge. Okay. And we can scroll using the button bottom right here. And when you zoom in more, you'll have another one that pops up to go across the page as well. But now on this bottom edge, I can actually see my scallop a lot easier, so it's a good one to line it up on. And I want to take it so it's about 3 scallops in. Okay. So when you've positioned it down here, you can go back up and check up top. Okay. We should be able to try and match up that pattern. And I'll show you a little trick for doing that. So going back to our little rectangle, we're about halfway between the two. So between your score line here and your cut line that you're putting in here. Okay. And we can go object edit and we can do an offset. Okay. So this offset is going to give you the panel that we're then going to apply our pattern papers to. And we want it to go inside, so we're going to need a negative figure. And you want to give a good border around. So something that looks like that. And I'm going to go OK. So we've got our kind of half a front, then we've got an aperture, then we've got the panel that we're going to decorate. And hopefully, if everything works the way I'm thinking, we'll be able to use the offcut from our card base to actually form that back panel. So I'm going to go OK at that. And sometimes you just have to go and wing it. So let's go to cut. And it's not going to tell you your pressure or if half cut's on until you put a blade in the machine. Now, for what I'm doing today, you don't need to have any particular detail blade in terms of vinyl auto blade or even a deep cut blade for the CM. Just the standard auto blade for the SDX or the standard cut blade for your CM, so the blue one. So I'm going to pop that in, drop the pencil. That's oh dear. Let's retrieve that. And you can see that once we put it in and we've locked down, it's going to come up with the pressure, the speed, and if your half cut is turned on or off. Now half cut is on SDX models only. So typically, if I'm working with a brand new blade, my pressure will be all the way down, -9. I know that my blade has been temperamental, I think I shall say. So my pressure's up a bit. But just in case, I'm just going to take it down just a touch. Now, the other thing to look at when we're looking at cutting is the cut amount. And mine's on 0.5 just because it's been having that issue. But let's see, it's had a few days rest, so it should be okay. So let's go start. Now, as long as you don't unload your mat at any point of the process, up to that point, you should be all lined up correctly for your card base. If you do have to unload your mat for any reason, just redo that background scan and just double check alignment. And let me see if that one will work. Yay! So let me just move that very slightly because there we go. So you can actually see what it's doing. So it's doing that wavy line. Hi Linda! Happy New Year! And then it's going to do that offset that we did in that last step. Okay, now before we do anything else in terms of removing it from the mat, let's check our cut lines have all cut. Because if not, we're just going to send it round again. Now, scallop feels all okay. And aperture feels okay. Now for the tricky one to check, because obviously we have a shape within a shape. Yeah, I trimmed my nails. That wasn't a good idea, was it? Let's get my metal spatula. So metal spatulas are better than the plastic one. And again, I think that's all okay. There we go. See, look, does benefit from a little rest occasionally. So once you know that everything is cut okay, we're going to unload the mat. So let's just go back to the screen. So we're going to go okay, unload. Now at this point, if we were to suddenly decide that we need to put it in again, then obviously we could be slightly misaligned. So that's just something to bear in mind. So we have our panel that we want to decorate. And let's go overhead, which is this one here. Like so. And then we have our card blanket itself that we want to pop up off the mat. Now I did restick my mat before Christmas, so just take a little bit extra care when we're removing stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to do now to make my life a little easier is I'm going to grab a pair of scissors. Now we're going to trim it so that we have a good section of our design, but we don't have to go all the way to this end here. So let's go there or thereabouts. And we're going to come in here. Now, ta-da! So this is going to form two functions, right? So firstly, we're going to use that to back our panel with. But we're also going to use it as a ruler. So what you want to get is a pencil. It doesn't have to be a fancy pencil. And we're going to line up our little wavy line. Let me just see if I can get that to show a bit clearer, because it's glaring a bit, isn't it? There we go. So if I just hold my arm there for a second, you can see that we've got the wavy line here. So we're going to draw wherever it hasn't cut, because we just want to finish off this top line here. So just very gently do a little pencil line there. Now at the bottom, I got that pretty much smack on, so that's going to be nice and easy to finish off. But I'm just going to get my scissors in there, and we can follow that pencil line round. Now, once you've done this, if you have a bit here that it just doesn't quite line up on, you can obviously go back in and just tweak that as you like. And then down the bottom here, we're going to do a nice little bit of rounding off there, just so that it just finishes everything off nicely. I'm just going to trim that round so it looks like it was always supposed to be like that. There we go. So, time for the paper pad. Now, I'm going to do, first of all, do a insert for the back. And I want to go for stripe. There we go. Like so. Now, obviously, I'm working with a 6x6 pad and a DL card blank. But what I want to do is have it so that it kind of sits within the scallops. So, get your trimmer. And you can use guillotine, paper trimmer, whichever you prefer. And I'm going to firstly chop this in half. Now you want it so that your stripes are going horizontally and not vertically, because if you're going vertically, then you've got to worry about pattern matching. So particularly with this paper here where we've got this kind of vintage effect on, vertically isn't going to work. So you then have two 3-inch strips. You want to rotate it round so that if you've got like a vintage edge, it's all on the same side. Okay. Now, if they don't match perfectly here, firstly, don't panic. But what I do want to do, just to make my life a little easier, is I'm going to stick these together with some tape just temporarily. I'm going to stick first that half, then line this up. So make sure that you're going like edge to like edge. There we go. Then we can just press that down well. Hopefully when we then flip that over, we've got a good guide for tidying up the width here. Okay. Just because not all pads are created true to the 6x6. So open that back up. Now you can work out where you want to put that join. So I'm thinking actually that looks quite nice there. So we can trim that up just here. If you do it at a stripe, it's nice and easy to kind of hide your pencil mark and gives you a good point of reference. Chop that down and we can pop that to one side for a minute. Okay, so make your life nice and easy. Don't remove the tape. And we'll get some double-sided tape. If we go for paperback, then we can tear it and it's nice and quick. So got some easy finger lift tape. It's going slightly on long, but it won't hurt. And same here. And across the top and bottom. So one of my targets for the first part of the year is to use up all my adhesive, because it's all seen better days. Nothing is has a permanent shelf life, so sometimes it's good to have a clear out, and we've certainly been having a clear out. Okay, so you can do the 2-corner peel trick, but because this is quite narrow, see, look, easy finger lift tape. No, not going to be easy finger lift at all. Come on. Just does not want to release from the paper. There we go. So peel this one off and do the same on this top corner. There we go. And just peel off this corner here. We'll have to watch later. Didn't know that you were doing the live. Oh, that's a shame. There's a event schedule up on the Go Create page that will tell you when I go live. So that's a good one to keep an eye out for. Also, you've come up as Facebook user, so I don't know who it is that's leaving the comment. So I'm going to go with that there. Peel, peel. And then we've got our panel like so. Now, if you wanted to, you could just have something that you suspend in this gap here. So if you cut 2 of these, for instance, you could actually have it so that you have a little bit of cord that goes between here and here and have it like a spinner. But for now, let's get our little piece in here. Okay. Might just have to do some wet glue for that, just so that we don't accidentally stick something that shouldn't. So a little bit on your corners, and then I'll do a little bit on these as well. Doesn't take a lot. Now you could do this with your pattern paper instead, so that you end up with like a second frame. But I think that will do. Now this particular glue does stay sticky, so that's just something to bear in mind. You want to try and avoid it kind of squidging out too much. Okay, so we've got our panel in there. Now I have my thin panel here, and we can either go for that same horizontal stripe, or I'm thinking let's go for a contrasting design. So let's go for this one. So the reason we did that card piece is that we wanted to have a little bit more depth. So rather than me trying to layer this up and then cut it out and so on and so forth, what you can do is you can stick it back on your cutting mat and use that same cut file just to create that center panel. So it is entirely up to you what you want to do. Now, looking at time, I'm just going to do it the quick way, but it's certainly worth doing that and popping it back onto your cutting mat and doing that next step. So, while I'm here, you may have seen that we have launched a new Patreon page, and that's going to give you access to lots of videos that we haven't previously done, and it's a project that I'm really quite excited about because I've actually broken down the process of using the scan and cut to start with into lots of little bite-sized chunks, so that if you're looking how to do something in particular, you can just search for it and there'll be a video on it. So we have the first 4 of those have gone up already, and then we are aiming to get another sort of 8 videos done each month so that we can build those up. So as I said, the first ones are all scan and cut, but what I'm aiming to do is also have the same for silhouette for CanvasWorkspace, and so they tie into the new book, because the new book is coming on quite a pace now. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut this out very roughly, so I've got like a little bit extra. So what I can do, just to give myself a nice neat edge, is let's just fold this round. Bone folders, marvellous things. It does tend to grow legs. So I'll get that in a minute. And let's do this end here. And let's get this one. There we go. Like so. Fold that down. Okay. And we will go chop and chop. And you want to try and do this at 45-degree angles with a little bit left over, just so that you get a nice neat finish on that corner. Okay. Now, double-sided tape. Now, I want to try and catch these edges with the tape. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can just fold that round and have it stick to itself. Always tricky with finger lift to get in the alignment though, so I may have to put a little extra bit more tape on that. Come on. Finger lift tape is great in that you can get under the backing, but sometimes it's like still wilds itself. Okay, so let's get that one, and then this one this side, like so. May have to put a little bit more tape on that just to go down the other side. Good news is it doesn't have to be stuck all the way down. And then we can 3D foam this up as well if you want to do something that's nice and simple. Then to finish off, you are just going to die cut or scan and cut a nice floral design of your choosing. Let me just take that off there. Okay, and finally, okay, there we go. So we have our pattern panel. Now, I'm probably going to pop that up with a little bit of 3D foam. So, let's get I'm going to use round dots for a change. Usually I end up going squares, but let's go round. If you can hear a dog, it's not mine. Okay, so I'm going to pop this on here, and then because we've used that 3D foam, we can have elements that are going to go tucked behind that if you want to, or if you just want to do a nice simple floral silhouette, we can pop that on there. I did not get that at all in the centre, honestly. I mean, let's try that again, shall we? There we go. So we have our nice simple card design. So we have like a mock sort of embossing effect. We've got our nice insert, and you could still do a sentiment strip in the same proportion as this that we could put onto this section here, so that you're mimicking stripes throughout your card design then. Okay, so welcome to 2024. We're going back to basics, and I hope you are going to be along for the journey. So if you are interested in Patreon and what we have to offer on there, you can go to patreon.com/GoCreateCraft, all one word when I can say it. And we have different levels for what you want to do. So we have the highest is the student tier, and that gives you access to have a one-to-one with me every month. So if that is what you need to help you get going, then that's the one you want to sign up for. That also gives you access to all the bite-sized videos. You also have the subscriber tier, which is where you're going to get like a monthly kit, and the student tier includes access to that as well. So, any questions before I go? If not, I will call it a day there. And thank you for joining me. I will be back on Facebook as well, so if you want to be in the group to ask questions, then I will be there. Take care for now, and bye.